No time to network? I've got a solution for that problem. I'm Greg. I'm the Introverted Networker. And something people tell me when I ask them, why aren't you networking? They say, I don't have time. It's probably one of the number one excuses I hear for people who aren't networking. When they say that, they say it because they think it's going to take a lot of time to network. In their mind, they're thinking, I've got to find a networking event. I have to get myself there, which means I have to drive or take a ride, get the train or the bus or whatever I got to do to get there. And then I got to go spend an hour with a bunch of strangers and try to make a connection. And then I got to get myself home. And they're thinking about all of those things they have to do in order to network. What I'm telling you is you can network in a lot less time if you change the way you think about networking. In fact, you only need 15 minutes a day to network. Don't believe me? Don't think that's possible? My goal in this video is to show you how you can network in 15 minutes a day. Why 15 minutes? Let me tell you a little bit about me. About 10 years ago, I did an experiment. And the reason I did this experiment was I had a lot of ideas I wanted to get in the world. And I had a job, I had a family, I had a lot of things going on. I could never find time. I was the one making the excuse of, I don't have time. What I challenged myself was to spend 15 minutes a day working on one of those ideas to see if I could make progress. I called my experiment 15 minutes of change. And the first idea I had was, could I build a WordPress website in 15 minutes a day? Keep in mind, I had never built a website before. I didn't know anything about building websites, but I was interested in building an online presence, an online website, an audience, products, any of that stuff. And I knew I needed to learn how to do this, or at least get smart enough to know what I didn't know. I started one Monday and I woke up and I set a timer on my computer, an online stopwatch for 15 minutes. And I just started looking up how to build a WordPress website. And I found instructions and I found a way to install what I need to install and get an account, how to get a theme, how to start building it with all of the plugins. And what I found was I could do a lot more in 15 minutes than I thought. And over the course of a week and a half or 2 weeks, I had a website up and running using just 15 minutes a day. Now, you could say, well, if you would have sat down for a couple of hours, you could have knocked that out and you would have been done. True, but whoever can find a couple hours in their day. But I could always find 15 minutes when I first woke up in the morning to work on this. I took this experiment, I applied it to a lot of areas of my life, including networking. And what I started doing was focusing on my networking activities for 15 minutes a day. I keep saying 15 minutes a day. Why do I love 15 minutes a day? Well, number one, it was an easy increment of time. It's enough time to get started and maybe do something, but it's not so much that you can't find time for it. The other cool thing about it is it's about 1% of your day. There's 1,440 minutes in your day. So 1% of that is about 15 minutes. So it's kind of cool to say I only spend 1% of my day networking, and that's all I need to do. As I went on and learned more about this, a couple of things I observed about the 15-minute rule was it's enough to get you started without feeling like you're overcommitted. So what I mean by that is the hardest thing to do when you're doing any task is getting started, in my opinion. Getting started is the hardest thing to do. And one of the barriers is the obstacle of time. We think about taking the time and we say, I don't have that time, so I'm not going to get started. But if you get the time down so small to 15 minutes that you think it's not really an excuse anymore, I can spend 15 minutes doing anything, it gets you past that obstacle and gets you started. Once you get started, you get going. And by the time that stopwatch or timer goes off at 15 minutes, you sometimes want to do more. And I always let myself do more if I had the time. If I didn't have an appointment or I didn't have something coming up, I would let myself do more if I felt like it. But on days when I woke up and I didn't feel like it, I knew I only had to muddle through it for 15 minutes. And I usually got over my resistance and got more into the task. So it's small enough to get you started, but it's enough that you can actually accomplish anything. The other thing I found out is if you do it consistently every day, it really adds up quickly and you find you're making a lot of progress. So back to networking and how you can network, or how I network in 15 minutes a day. I will do this. I will set either the timer. I'll go to Google and type in online timer or online stopwatch. There's all sorts of them out there. I'll set it for 15 minutes and I'll click go. And then I will do one networking task. And usually one networking task leads into more networking tasks. And before I know it, usually that timer's going off and I'm right in the middle and I'll keep going. You can use your phone, whatever. It's just a timer. You have to actually set the timer so that you'll do the work for 15 minutes. Now, some other things that make this easier is having a few places to start. What are some activities you can do in 15 minutes a day? Well, some of the things I do is I have a list of connections. I have a list of people that I keep in touch with, that I maintain over time. I talked about it a little bit in issue number 35 of the Introverted Networker newsletter. It's the 525-150 list, where you have a list of people and they're categorized and you focus on staying in touch with a couple of them every single day. I will go to that and see who haven't I reached out to in a while, and I'll go and send them a message and I'll say, hey, haven't heard from you in a while, checking in, wondering how you're doing. Or I'll find somebody new, and the new person might be somebody I search in LinkedIn. It might be somebody who's posted on LinkedIn, who said something interesting that I want to connect with. It might be somebody who was a coworker that I've lost touch with, and I find them and I send them a message and connect with them on LinkedIn. So a couple of things I do. I'll try to either find a new connection on LinkedIn, which is searching for people who are doing things I'm interested in. Either they're at companies I like, or there's somebody who is a connection with somebody I already know. So on LinkedIn, you can look at other people's connections and do a search on them and say, who are their second degree or first degree connections, and go in and try to connect with those people. So I'll do a few minutes of searching for new people to connect with on LinkedIn and send them a message and start the conversation. As I do that, or as I reach out to other people I already know and they send me back messages, then I need to respond to those and try to set up in-person or voice-to-voice calls or meetings. That's what I'll do also with a couple of those minutes, is I will respond to messages people have sent me back because I reached out to them. I'll schedule them, I'll put them on the calendar, and I'll look for other places, whether it's on LinkedIn with people posting or people in comments. I will spend some time just trying to figure out who I'm going to connect with. And that's what I do. That's it. And in 15 minutes, I can do one or more of those things. And as I do it more, I get better and better and faster at it. And I do this each day. And because I do it each day, I end up having a calendar full of phone calls or connections or email exchanges or things in the future that I have to keep my network going. The point is, for this 15 minutes, what I want you to focus on is how can you reconnect with people, connect with new people, send messages, and try to get those meetings set up. Those meetings, those voice-to-voice phone calls or video calls or in-person conversations don't count for the 15 minutes. Those are going to be outside the 15 minutes because typically you're going to be talking to those people for longer. But that's okay. You may say, well, I don't have time to have those calls, but I think you do. The thing that people don't have time for is to just go to some event for an hour and wander around and hope they meet somebody. But if you specifically have a conversation set up with somebody that you are trying to meet and get to know, you'll find time to do that. But the 15 minutes is getting that set up and reconnecting and connecting with people. If you find 15 minutes is too much, if that's just getting overwhelming, you can make it 5. That's fine. And if you just have to connect with one person each time you do it, that's fine too. The key here is to find some time every single day where you start the process of networking, even if it's a small amount. But commit to doing that and doing that every day. And I think what you'll find is, number one, you'll get into it. You'll get better at it. You'll start to make those connections and your network will start growing. And it will become a priority for you that you start finding time to do these things because you'll start seeing the results. I've talked about this in other places. This is not the first time I've talked about it. I talked about this back in issue number 14 of the Introverted Networking newsletter. I even have a guide that I created, which is called 15-Minute Networking, that I'll link to in the comments here in the description of this, or in the show notes or in the newsletter. I'll put the link to that. It's 15-Minute Networking. It basically walks you through a week of networking 15 minutes at a time. And you can buy that on Gumroad. I'll put the link in, like I said, in all the places where I have this episode going out. But check that out. It's really something that will help you through this. If time is an issue, if this is the biggest pain you have with networking, there is a solution. There's no reason you should say, I don't have time to network. Check out all the resources. Subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to the newsletter. If you like it, leave a comment. Would love to hear from you. And give it a shot. Set the timer for 15 minutes. Let me know how it goes, if it's working for you. If it's not, let me know. We'll work on a different solution. That's what I'm here for, to teach you to be a better networker. Go out, reconnect with somebody this week, spend 15 minutes. Remember, always be connecting.